On set. Ready?
Come on, Smith, get in there, Billy!
6, 21, set! The winning moment. It's something we all dream about. No matter what task we choose, we want the opportunity to do our best and to enjoy the recognition that comes from a job well done.
To realize this moment of triumph takes planning, training, determination, and desire. Welcome to the National Roofing Contractors Association's program on tear-off and job setup for low-slope roofing. At first glance, you may not think low-slope roofing has much in common with sports such as football or baseball. Well, let's take another look.
Job setup and tear-off for a roofing project takes careful planning. And a roof mechanic trains hard to develop the necessary skills to perform these tasks. But it takes more than skill and the right equipment to win. It takes teamwork to build success and ensure safety.
In this program, you'll have the opportunity to learn a lot about the skills and craftsmanship that will help you become a professional roof mechanic and a valuable member of a winning team.
These professionals would never consider doing their job without the right equipment, like protective padding and helmets. Professional roof mechanics also need the right PPE, personal protective equipment, to safely get their jobs done. You'll be reminded throughout this program that the safe use and care of all equipment is a key part of every task you do.
But remember, ultimately, you are responsible for your own safety down here and up here. And you share that responsibility with everyone around you.
You also need to realize that this video is only a primer for the tasks you need to learn. Everyone will get the opportunity to try them during the in-shop and on-the-job segments of this training program. Now, let's get started by taking a look at some of the basic tools you'll need every day to work on low-slope roofing.
To start, there are several common tools you'll need for everyday tasks on nearly all low-slope roofing jobs. They'll make up your own personal toolkit. Your student manual lists these tools, and your supervisor will show you what you'll be using. You'll find other familiar tools on the roof as well, like brooms, mops, rollers, and squeegees. Most of these tools do not appear dangerous by themselves, but they can be when used on a roof. Always remember your PPE. Like gloves when using a knife, or eye protection when nailing. Always work safely, even when doing the simplest of tasks.
Speaking of safety, let's look at some electric tools you'll be using and a few tips for their safe operation.
On many roofing jobs, you'll see one of these, a portable electric generator. They're used to operate all kinds of electrical equipment. If the generator runs out of fuel, give it a few minutes to cool down before you try to refuel it. Never fill a generator or any power equipment with fuel while it is hot or running. Make sure you use an approved safety fuel container. It's specifically designed to store fuel safely, and a funnel to minimize spillage. Also, keep a fire extinguisher nearby when you're refueling. Many generators today have a built-in ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI. Check yours, and if it doesn't have one, you'll need to use a portable GFCI plugged in at the power source. It's also a good idea to use one when plugging directly into a building's power outlet. Extension cords must have proper 3-prong grounding plugs at each end and be rated for the equipment you're using. GFCIs and properly grounded extension cords help to reduce the risk of electric shock when operating electric tools and equipment.
Roof mechanics rely on a lot of electric power tools for low-slope roofing projects. Electric drills are used to drill through wood, steel, and concrete. And with special attachments can be converted into different types of screw guns used to drive a variety of fasteners. And always remember your eye protection when using an electric drill of any kind. Circular and reciprocating saws are used a lot in roofing. Before using any saw, be sure the blade is sharp, fits tight, and is the correct type for the material being cut. Allow plenty of slack in the cord so the saw moves freely, and don't force the cut, or the saw can kick back and cause serious injury. Check all electric tools and equipment for damage before use. If damaged, don't use it, and don't try any temporary fix like taping over a cut cord. Red tag the equipment and remove it from service. There are roofing tasks where you'll use power tools and equipment that aren't electric. For example, this powder-actuated fastening tool uses a bullet-like powder cartridge and fastener to secure materials into steel or concrete. Hand torches are used for a variety of roofing tasks. They burn liquefied petroleum gas, commonly called propane gas, for fuel. Together with a pressure regulator and hose, the propane tank assembly is used to supply and control propane gas fuel. Propane fuel is used to operate several kinds of low-slope roofing equipment. You will learn more about the different types of equipment in other NRCA training programs. But let's take a closer look at propane tank assemblies and how to safely use them. The propane gas stored in these tanks is in a liquid form under extremely high pressure. There are two kinds of propane tanks: liquid and vapor withdrawal. A liquid withdrawal tank has a male connection fitting on top. A dip tube extends from this fitting to the bottom of the tank, where it draws the fuel in its liquid form. This liquefied gas can only fuel vaporizing burners, the type generally used to heat bitumen in kettles and tankers.
A vapor withdrawal tank has a female connection fitting on top and does not have a dip tube connected to it. The propane is drawn from a pocket of gas that forms in the top of the tank. The vaporized gas can then be used to fuel burners such as this hand torch. Before using propane-fueled equipment, you must learn the proper way to connect the components, test all connections for leaks, light the equipment safely, and adjust the gas flow pressure. Step-by-step instructions for these can be found in your student manual, and you will practice these procedures many times.
There's one very important safety tip to remember when working with propane tanks. If the gas is being used up faster than it's being released from the tank can frost up, restricting the gas flow. You'll know there's a problem because white frost forms on the exterior of the tank, and the pressure drops significantly. This condition also occurs more frequently during cold weather. There is only one cure for this problem. Simply change to a larger tank. Never heat a propane tank to get rid of the frost. It won't work. And never tip the tank over, thinking you'll get more gas out. This could allow liquid propane to escape and burn out of control. Both of these efforts could easily cause the tank to explode. There are all kinds of power tools and equipment used for roofing tasks like material handling, seaming, spraying, removal, surface preparation, and disposal. It isn't possible to cover them all in a single program. The safe operation and maintenance procedures for all of this equipment will be presented in the training module for each roof system or task where they are used, some of them later in this program.
Alexander in motion. A running play right away to Bunch.
And speaking of maintenance, how we treat our equipment and tools is very important. If they break down, goals become more difficult to reach and you just can't win. Or even worse, if our safety equipment isn't in top condition, our health, even our lives, could be at risk. Always remember that it's everyone's job to keep all tools and equipment clean and in good working condition. You will learn basic guidelines for rooftop maintenance and startup checks during the in-shop and on-the-job segments for all of your equipment training. They may include checking drive belts and chains, lubricating bearings, or cleaning valves or tires. If you spot a problem, even if it looks minor, don't ignore it and don't start using the equipment. Correct the problem immediately if you can, or tag the equipment, remove it from the work area, and let your supervisor know. Finally, when you're finished using the equipment, clean it and be sure it's ready and safe to use for the next person.
Well, that brings us to the end of part 1 of this program. Let's quickly review what we've learned.
Remember your personal protective equipment, PPE, and always look after yourself by wearing them when needed. Remember the importance of fall protection equipment as well. We checked out some basic tools and equipment, small and large, that you'll use on the job. We also learned how important it is to take proper care of every tool and piece of equipment you use. Both job production and the safety of you and your crew depend on it. You're an important part of a team. By taking care of your equipment and looking out for each other, you will be able to enjoy success and safety on the job, and some winning moments of your own. Preparation. Every success begins with a well-thought-out plan that moves a team ahead and takes into account possible hazards.
In order to succeed, a job setup requires careful planning for each stage of the proposed project. In part 2 of this video, we're going to look at the job setup stage for low-slope roofing.
Every roofing project has its team leaders. The estimators, project managers, superintendents, and foremen are responsible for most of the pre-job planning. They will designate the ground setup area where materials are stored and hoisted up to the roof. They'll check the building and parapet wall heights, figure out roof access, and choose a setup location on the roof. They know the equipment and materials that will be required, the number of disposal chutes you'll need to assemble, and the necessary fall protection equipment to set up. Your team leaders will look for problem areas inside and out, and also make recommendations for protecting the grounds in nearby buildings from noise, dust, fumes, or overspray. Your first duty on site is to be observant and stay alert. Your safety and that of your team members depends on all of you keeping an eye out for each other. Speak up if you find problems, anything that you believe looks dangerous. Learn to watch for falling debris, weak spots in the roof that someone could fall through, gas leaks, or any other dangers. Also, don't be afraid to ask your supervisor questions. That's why he's there. Any ideas you have to help your team work safer, faster, or better are always valuable. Now, let's get the job set up. The first step is to get on the roof, usually with a ladder. If you have trouble with a large ladder, ask for help. Make sure the ladder is in good condition, and if it's not, don't use it. Tag it, remove it from service, and set up another ladder. You will learn more about ladder setup procedures in your workbook and get a chance to practice during in-shop training sessions. Here's another way to get on many roofs. The roof hatch or scuttle can give you access to the roof. Just be sure to protect the interior flooring from dirt, debris, bitumen, and adhesives. Keep access doors closed so that dirt and irritating fumes don't leak into the building. And change in and out of your work boots before walking through the building interior. Let's move back outside and look at the ground setup. To protect yourself from falling objects or debris while you're on the ground, always wear your hard hat. Overhead protection canopies may need to be set up if work on the roof is close to public sidewalks and building entrances or exits. Bitumen spills or falling debris can damage sidewalks, driveways, landscaping, walls, and windows. Sweeping dirty water off a roof can also stain exterior walls. Protect all work areas with tarps or plywood.
Before dump trucks and dumpsters can be brought in, protect soft ground using plywood sheets or wood planks. And avoid driving over sidewalks. They're not strong enough to support the heavy loads.
Many times, materials are stored or equipment is set up on the ground, usually near the hoist area. To keep the general public out, close off this area and the area around dumpsters, with plenty of room to spare using brightly colored warning flags and cones. If you're using a kettle or tanker for your low-slope roofing job, be sure to set it up on firm ground. Chock the wheels on both sides, and be sure the tanker's parking brake is engaged. Also, level the unit as much as possible to reduce the risk of spillage or exposing the heating tubes. Keep an ABC-rated fire extinguisher within 20 feet, but not on the kettle.
Secure the propane tanks in an upright position at least 20 feet away from any open flames. You can learn more safety and operating procedures for heating bitumen in other NRCA training programs. There's one more step to complete this setup: the bitumen supply lines. When you're assembling supply lines, pay close attention. Be sure the couplers fit together tightly, because you don't want hot bitumen to leak. This can cause severe burns and property damage in a flash. You may have to heat the couplers to soften old bitumen lodged in the pipe threads to make sure the coupler ends seat firmly together. When tightening the coupler, use 2 pipe wrenches in opposite scissor-like directions to secure a tight fit. You may also run across these knockoff type couplers. This process is repeated until enough pipe sections are assembled to complete the desired length. Hoist one end of the assembled pipe to the roof and connect the other end to the coupler of the outlet pipe on your tanker or kettle. When heating this coupler, it is extremely important never to point an open flame into the outlet pipe or any opening where fumes can seep out of the tank. This could ignite fumes inside the tank, causing a powerful explosion. Point the torch flame up and away from the pipe while heating the threads, and be aware of where fumes are emitting from the tank to avoid contact with the open flame. When the line fills with hot bitumen, its weight will triple, causing it to sag and pull down on the pipe assembly. So to give it support, finish the supply line setup by tying it off securely on the roof to a stationary object, such as a support stand made just for this purpose. This will support the pipe and prevent it from slipping and falling.
On a low-slope roofing project, there's a lot of material to move, and you'll need to set up some kind of hoist. Don't forget your fall protection equipment while working near the edge of the roof. You and others on your team must have a clear sight line between the ground and roof edge so everyone can easily communicate with each other. Sometimes two-way radios may be necessary. Whether your hoist is on the ground or roof, it must have proper counterweight. And keep the area around it clear of all unnecessary materials and debris. Using a hoist on the roof has its share of hazards. To keep the risk of accidents down, you must set up a guardrail at material handling points on both sides. You also must wear a personal fall arrest system whenever you are outside this guardrail. Roofing crews use many kinds of hoists and conveyors, depending on the job. You don't need to know how to assemble and operate them all right now, but you will learn how to set up and use the hoists your company uses the most as a part of your in-shop or on-the-job training in this program.
One of the most important first steps of any job setup is to get all fall protection equipment in place before doing anything else on the roof. This warning line system, for example, is here to warn you and other team members that you're too close to the edge of the roof.
Even if there is no hoist on the roof, you still have to set up guardrails around any potentially dangerous areas or openings, or be tied off with a personal fall arrest system.
We're almost ready to begin the tear-off. Before we get to that, we need to set up a way to dispose of debris.
On roofing jobs, you'll find a variety of ways for getting rid of trash and old roofing debris from the roof. Disposal chutes like this are set up near the edge of the roof. They need a solid support system including heavy counterweights. Again, there are a variety of disposal chute designs, and you will receive training on setting up the type your company uses. There are also many ways to set up open disposal slide chutes if the job conditions allow. Steel debris tubs and heavy-duty tarps are also used to collect and hoist away debris. Carefully check their condition before use.
This brings us to the end of part 2 and the basics of setting up a low-slope roofing job. Before we move ahead and start tearing off, let's review these basics once more.
We've learned about the many things team leaders have to plan before the job is set up, and the importance of being observant, staying alert, and contributing to getting the job done. We've looked at accessing the roof, including ladder setup and proper use of a roof hatch. Ground setup includes protecting the buildings, landscaping, and general public, as well as the setup of kettles, tankers, and their supply lines. And don't forget your hard hat. We've seen how to organize equipment and materials, and that getting them to the roof requires setting up hoists and conveyors. Remember that setting up all fall protection equipment must be the first task once you're up on the roof. And finally, what you need to set up for removal of roofing trash and debris, including disposal chutes, slides, or hoisting it away in steel tubs or heavy-duty tarps. The success of a low-slope roofing project often depends on how well you and your team perform the setup. That also means doing your part to maintain safe working conditions. Attention to detail now will prevent setbacks and injuries later. It's a challenging moment. Aware of the dangers, this quarterback must use a well-practiced play and depend on his teammates' skills to score a touchdown.
Low-slope roofing is filled with challenges too. For instance, how do you choose which equipment is best suited for the job at hand? What do you do when bad weather threatens? Can the roof be recovered, or is it necessary to do a complete tear-off? And how can you make sure the roof you install will go the distance? In part 3 of this program, we'll look at one of the most important and challenging jobs for a professional roof mechanic, the tear-off. Let's get started.
Your supervisor will talk to you and your team about any problems or special conditions that the job presents, and he will check inside and out for any damaged areas that are visible. If you should find a problem, make sure you mark the damaged area first and then let your team know about it. Tell your supervisor so he can warn the building's owners. Another challenge you might find are pipes or electrical conduits hidden below or within the roof assembly. They're hard to see and easy to cut or screw into, and that's not a good thing. The areas should be marked off before cutting into the roof. If a conduit or pipe is damaged, immediately let your supervisor know. Unexposed electrical conduits and gas pipes can also be found buried in the insulation above wood plank or concrete roof decks.
Your next job is to protect the interior roof drains and scuppers from debris or damage. Block the drain using a brightly colored plastic cone inserted upside down, or rigid materials large enough that they can't slip down the drain pipe.
And make sure you remove this drain protection at the end of the day. If there's a storm, the blocked drains could cause the roof to flood and possibly collapse. There is one last thing to protect before starting the tear-off: you. This face wrap will help keep dirt and dust from irritating your skin and lungs. And you can use this special cream to reduce skin irritation when removing old coal tar materials. Now you're ready to start the tear-off. The first step may be to remove any loose aggregate surfacing. If there's just a small area, you can use a broom or shovel. When there's a lot of aggregate, this powered sweeper will do the job. If you decide to use a sweeper, don't operate it within 6 feet of the roof's edge. It's very powerful and could knock you over the side. This method can also create a lot of airborne dust and debris, and eye protection is a must for everyone around. You may have to slightly dampen the aggregate surface to help keep the dust to a minimum. As with all powered equipment, be sure to complete a maintenance check for the entire machine before starting the engine. Push the aggregate into evenly spaced piles that are not too large and heavy, where it can be shoveled into containers and removed from the roof. For larger aggregate removal jobs, a power vacuum system is sometimes used.
Mother Nature, she's full of surprises. There's enough to do on a low-slope roof without trying to second-guess the weather. So here are a few things to keep in mind before you start to cut open an old roof.
Be sure you have a sense of what the current weather forecast is and predictions for the next couple of days. If you're not sure what the workday weather will bring, tear off only small areas at a time and close them in before cutting more. Do not tear off more roof area than can be covered watertight by the end of the same day. In other words, never bite off more than you can chew. You can choose from 4 kinds of cutting tools, from a simple knife to roof cutters powered by small engines connected to carbide-tipped steel blades.
If you're cutting a single-ply membrane, you can usually cut it with a knife and fold or roll it into bundles you're able to safely lift and dispose of. But for old built-up and modified bitumen roof systems, you'll need something a little more powerful, like this, a power roof cutter, or a handheld power cutoff saw like this. It can reach places a larger cutter can't.
A roof mechanic can also use this, a simple axe, to cut up an old roof assembly. It's also handy for removing old vertical flashings. All roof cutting equipment, even the axe, requires maintenance. Keeping the equipment clean and the blades sharp will make cutting tasks much easier and safer. And don't forget the rooftop maintenance for all power equipment too. Here's another tip. Try to begin your tear-off near the part of the roof that's furthest from your disposal site. You won't have to walk over new membrane every day. To start using a power roof cutter, be sure the blade is set at the correct depth. It has to cut through all of the old layers of roofing, yet avoid slicing into the deck itself. The old roof system may also have a tapered insulation, requiring changing the cutting depth in different areas. If the old system is excessively thick, it may require multiple cuts at more shallow depths. You'll learn how to adjust this setting during your in-shop and on-the-job training. Once you have adjusted the cutter, try a sample cut and inspect the depth. It's okay if you need to make a few adjustments to get it right. There may even be times you only cut and remove one layer at a time, so it's always better to undercut than overcut. Cut the roof area in a checkerboard pattern, finishing all cuts in one direction first, then make all cuts in the cross direction. Be sure to cut the old roof into sizes you can safely lift and will fit easily into the disposal chute you have set up. Cutting the pieces too large means they may be too heavy or could jam inside the disposal chute. This could cause debris to back up inside the chute without notice, thus overloading the weight capacity, causing it to collapse. Be sure to use proper lifting techniques when removing old materials from the deck. You can learn more about them in NRCA's Introduction to Safety training module. If necessary, don't hesitate to use one of these tools to lift and separate the old roofing from the deck. You're bound to come across a stubborn piece of roofing. When you do, use an axe to break it up. Don't try to force or tear up a piece that is too large. Or if the old roofing is really stuck to the deck, use this power tear-off machine. It's easier, safer, and less tiring than struggling with old roofing.
You're already familiar with the field and the flashing, the 2 areas that make up a low-slope roof.
Well, like the field, these flashings also have to be removed when you tear off an old roof assembly. Before you remove a flashing, check with your supervisor to see if copings, counter flashings, gutters, or scuppers should be removed. Get rid of all debris as soon as you can. Don't let it pile up in one place, or it could overload the roof. Keeping the work area clean is important for a safe work environment and good production. As you dump into a disposal chute, check that the debris is not piling up too much in one spot in the disposal container below. The outlet of the chute may need to be moved to avoid debris backing up or spilling over the container. When you need to move debris and materials around on a low-slope roof, you can choose from several types of transport. There are single and double-wheeled wheelbarrows, powered buggies with dump carts, or motorized vehicles with dump carts or trailers. By now, you know the drill. Make sure fall protection equipment is in place whenever you're dumping old materials. Once the old roof system is completely removed, carefully inspect for any defective or damaged deck materials. They must be repaired or replaced now, before you begin to install the new roof system.
In order for the new roof system to be properly attached, the surface of the deck must be smooth, clean, and dry. A powered blower can help speed up this task. Also, remove all debris from the flutes of a metal deck.
When you're tidying up, check for things that don't belong there, like fasteners sticking up or small pieces of debris. Take care of these things as you move along, leaving behind a smooth, clean surface.
There. Now the tear-off is complete, and it's time to get the area back to a watertight condition. Sometimes a temporary roof membrane is installed, but usually installation of the new roof system will begin.
But before you go for the day, it's very important to tie off a secure seal between the old membrane and the new roofing materials. There is always the potential for moisture to enter the roof system, whether from a bad storm or a heavy dew. So never leave a roof open or unprotected overnight. To achieve a tight seal, the old membrane surface must be cleaned and prepared. If the tie-off area has an aggregate surface, you will need to spud the adjoining edges smooth by hand using this spud bar or a powered spudding machine. A water cutoff can also be used to prevent moisture from the old roof system from entering the new.
Now, there are still a couple of important things left to do before you call it a day.
Double-check the new membrane for damage. Also, look closely along the tie-off area. A hollow space here is easy to step through, and openings are easy to miss. Seal anything that even looks like it could leak using a proper sealant. There are several techniques used for temporary seals between old and new membranes, and you'll learn about them during on-the-job experiences. Walk over the entire roof one more time and pick up any small pieces of debris that could blow around or wash down and block the drains. And once again, don't forget to remove the interior drain protection at the end of each day.
Well, we've covered a lot about tear-off, probably more than you ever thought was involved. So it's a good time to take another look at what we've learned.
Always start by getting yourself in tune with the job site, becoming familiar with any hazards or problem areas. And don't forget to look for signs of a weak deck or unseen electrical conduits and pipes. Get those interior drains and scuppers protected from debris right away, and don't forget to unplug them at the end of the day. Old roof preparation for tear-off work may include removing loose aggregate. Before you begin the day's tear-off, know what to expect from the weather, and still keep a watchful eye and ear for any changes. Remember, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew in one day. Start the tear-off at the far end away from the disposal setup. After checking over and making adjustments to the power roof cutter, cut the tear-off area in a checkerboard pattern, completing cuts in the same direction before changing to the cross direction. Use the power cutoff saw and hand axe in tight areas and for removing flashings. And don't cut pieces so large that they can't easily be lifted or disposed of. Follow safe lifting techniques when removing the old roof system, or utilize one of the many tools designed to help with this task to reduce fatigue and maximize your effort. Never force stubborn materials. Chop them apart, and don't forget you may need the power tear-off machine. Remember that a tear-off includes all of the field and usually most of the flashings. But check with your supervisor if any components, like metal copings or scuppers, need to be saved before tearing them apart. Get the debris off the roof and hauled away as quickly as possible to keep the tear-off going. Don't pile up too much debris in one place. It could overload the roof. Using wheelbarrows, power buggies, and even motorized vehicles with carts will help move materials along. Finish the tear-off by cleaning the deck of all debris, leaving a smooth, clean, and dry surface. Provide a watertight tie-off by cleaning the old membrane surface, or spudding an old aggregate surface smooth. Use spud bars or a power scratcher for this task. And finally, before you leave, carefully check over the new membrane, whether it's temporary or a finished product, to assure it will stay watertight until you return to finish the job. Remove any loose debris to prevent blocking of the drains, and check that all drains are clear one more time.
That just about wraps up the video portion of this module. Let's quickly review all of the topics we've covered.
In Part 1, we looked at a variety of the tools and equipment commonly used on low-slope roofing jobs, including your safety equipment. And remember how important proper maintenance and care of all tools and equipment is. Not only does the success of the job depend on it, but your safety and the entire team's does too. In Part 2, we looked at job setup, including fall protection, how to prepare ground and roof areas for the job, and how to safely hoist, load, and move equipment and materials around. In Part 3, we learned about tear-off, one of the most challenging and important stages for many low-slope roofing jobs. We also looked at some tips for maintaining the work site to minimize risks to you, your team, and the building. Roofing is a challenging and rewarding career. To succeed takes training and commitment.
We hope this video has helped you become familiar with the basics of equipment, setup, and tear-off for low-slope roofing. The NRCA has many other programs to help you develop your skills, so keep learning.
And enjoy some winning moments of your own.